So recently, the US has been all over the news, and not in a good way. I'm from France, and some people I know were truly concerned when I told them I was gonna travel to the US this summer. And I even know some people who had plans to travel to the US but canceled their trips. But since I've been with an American for almost 9 years, and that I used to live in the US, not visiting our American friends and family was not an option. So we took a 7-hour flight and hoped for the best. And obviously, as we were landing, I was a bit nervous for immigration since we hear so many crazy stories in Europe. I had even made a nice little folder with all my documents in it. But to be honest, I was not ready for what happened. So when I arrive at passport control, things are taking a bit longer than usual, the lines are very long, and when I get to the officer, something really weird happens. He looks at my passport and he's like, "Your last name doesn't sound very French. Do you speak Spanish?" So you see, the thing is, I'm French, but my dad is from the country of Spain, so my last name doesn't really match my nationality, and I also can speak Spanish, so I also explained that to the officer. And in my head, I'm really scared because both the news and people telling me not to come to the US have kind of gotten to my head, and at this point I'm afraid I'm gonna be selected for additional questioning and be sent to the small room, which is never a good sign. But what happens instead is that the immigration officer is super happy to talk to me in Spanish because he actually comes from Puerto Rico and speaks Spanish as well. So yeah, in the end, he was super nice. I think it was one of the best immigration experience I had coming into the US. We continued the conversation in Spanish, I didn't get sent to the small room, and I could officially enter the US as a visitor. So here I felt it was a bit silly to worry because absolutely nothing out of the ordinary happened for me, and those crazy headlines I told you about were more extreme cases than day-to-day reality. But as you'll see in the rest of the video, the fear those headlines create can have real-life consequences. And also, there are a few other things I've heard have changed since the last time I was here, and I want to look into them and give you my first impressions as a European. Alright, so this time it has been a really small trip to see our family in France, but I've been to 15 states overall, and I want to go to all of them in my lifetime. And also, we're already planning a bigger trip in the fall where we're gonna hit a few more states, because one thing I absolutely love about the US and why I keep coming back, you know, apart from Bobby being American, is that this country is so big and so diverse that there's always something new to discover. Like, there's not one single American experience. Like last time, for example, we took a train from New York to San Francisco, and it was just super cool to see the diversity both in landscapes but also in culture. I've already talked about it in this video, so you can go watch it after. So I feel there's so many different perspectives in the US depending on who you are and where you live, and that's something I personally really love because I always discover something new. So during this trip, we've been to the Chicago suburbs where Bobby's from, and right now we're visiting friends in New York City. And you know, I know New York pretty well. I used to live here. I've visited so many times, but every time I discover something fully new. Like this time, for example, we stayed in this neighborhood at the very south of Manhattan, and I had never been there before, and it is right by the water, and it is so nice. It feels like the suburbs in the city. There's a nice little river walk from which you can see the Statue of Liberty and have a nice view over New Jersey. Also, it really feels like a neighborhood. Like, you always see the same people over and over again, either running or walking their dogs, and it has been super fun to do our morning walk here every day. And there's definitely some upscale things. Like, for example, right here, this is where The Wolf of Wall Street was filmed, so this scene where they're in a yacht, and we've been seeing super yachts come and go all week. So it has been an interesting glimpse into the life of super rich people who just come to New York on their super yacht for a few days and then leave. And since it's the summer, I like to do my people watching / spying with an iced coffee in hand. And since last time, I've learned that you don't need to tip at a coffee shop, but every time I come back to the US, I like checking how much I pay for a coffee to see if prices have increased. And that's another thing we hear a lot on the news recently, is that things have gotten super expensive in the US. And obviously prices are different everywhere, so tell me how it is where you live. But one thing I have noticed since I last was in the US is that tipping culture has been even more out of control than usual. I feel I say that every single time I come to the US. But recently something even crazier happened. I was buying a $1 bottle of water at a Whole Foods, and after I paid, the screen asked me to tip, and I was so shocked that I had to take a photo, and the options on a $1 bottle of water were $1, $2, or $5. This is absolutely crazy to me. Also, now there's even hidden tips everywhere. Like the other day we were at a restaurant with Bobby's family in the Chicago suburbs, and there was a 3% surcharge added to the bill to offset rising costs. And it seems that that was not a tip, like it doesn't go to the waiter at all. So yeah, I feel all this really makes me eat more at home, unless it's a special restaurant or something, and I love doing all my shopping at Trader Joe's. Joe's. I've talked about how much I love Trader Joe's on the channel before, but it's always something I'm looking forward to when I'm in the US. Like, they have really delicious, fun products, but it's always pretty well priced. So yeah, the first thing we did when we arrived here was doing a massive Trader Joe's haul. So even though it's still more affordable to shop for groceries, it seems like there's still some issues with some products. Like, I've noticed that in some shops you cannot take more than 3 cartons of eggs. So have you been having issues with eggs lately? Like, I feel it hasn't been a thing in Europe for a while. But one thing I love in summer is that you do have so many activities that are either cheap or free. Like in New York, for example, a lot of public libraries or parks have different events that are free to the public and really fun. And one thing that was just way cheaper than usual though were my flight tickets. So usually you have to know that when we come to the US, I don't do too much planning, and I always book my flight tickets a few weeks before. And that was such a good idea because the flights were so cheap. Like, my flight ticket from New York to Chicago was more expensive than my flight ticket from New York to Paris in France. Like, seriously, my return ticket was only $190. And this was on Air France, which is the French flagship carrier that also serves you champagne in economy. Like, in this article of Le Monde, which is the main newspaper of France, they interviewed the CEO of a French travel agency that says that their sales of trips to the US have dropped 20%. So personally, that's not something that has impacted my trip here. I don't think there's any tourists in the suburbs of Chicago or in local areas in New York. So I decided to go to the most touristy place I could think of, which is Times Square, and see if there were fewer people than usual or not. And it looked like this. And since I don't think I've ever gone to Times Square willingly, I don't know if that's a lot of people or not, so tell me what you think. But on my side, whenever I see news articles about tourism dropping, I know it's a good time to do famous things I've never done before, because there will be fewer people and the lines will be shorter. So here I decided to go to the Rockefeller Center, which I had never been to before, and it's a skyscraper that was built in the 1930s, so there's some really beautiful and fun details. I also decided to go on top of the building because there were absolutely no lines, and that was such a good idea because there was also almost no one on top, so it was so peaceful and quiet, and the views of the city are pretty nice. So since I had never been there, I stayed there for a bit, and I have to say that I really enjoyed the views over Central Park and all the skyscrapers. If you've been on the channel for a while, you know I like architecture and buildings, so this was a 10 out of 10 experience. And by the way, I booked this experience on Klook. Klook is a long-term partner of the channel, and whenever I'm traveling, I always book my tickets there because they have really great deals on activities around the world. If you want to try them, you can use my code LucileYTKlook or click the link in the description below for a discount. I do have to say that another thing that surprised me recently is how everything is locked up in pharmacies. Like, all the products are behind those plastic doors, and these are not only high-value products, we're talking deodorants, soaps, shampoos, and if you want anything, you have to press on a button and wait for the salesperson to give you your product. And this doesn't really make sense to me. Like, for example, you can buy a toothbrush how you want, but if you want toothpaste, then you have to talk to someone. And I had not been in a pharmacy in the US for a few years, so I think I just noticed now, but I really don't like it because, one, I don't like feeling like I'm a criminal, and also I don't like bothering the salespeople to buy stuff. Also, it doesn't seem that it's everywhere. In the Chicago suburbs, nothing is locked up, and overall, when I ask around, people seem to really hate it, so let's really hope it goes away. And when I was doing some research about why everything is locked up, I found a bunch of news articles and YouTube videos with really catchy titles, which I'm not gonna share here because I don't want to give them a platform, but you know the ones. And honestly, my opinion is that the media loves acting like the US is falling apart, and I feel this type of content with overly dramatic titles and AI image is everywhere, and it's super misleading, and of course it's making us feel unsafe and like everything is bad. And like every normal country, the US has its issues, but they're not as bad as what you see online. Like, I feel we all need to go outside and talk to real people instead of giving in to fear because we're getting our news from TikTok. And so far, my trip has been pretty normal. Like, nothing has drastically changed for me as a visitor, and I've also been really happy to reconnect with some things I love about the US. And looking back, I realized how easy it is to let other people's fears shape your view of a place. The US is both an amazing place to be from and to visit, and my trip here has been so fun. And just like every time I come here, people have been so warm and welcoming. Like, now I really enjoy small talk, and I've been having a bunch of little conversation with strangers. And also, since there's so many people here from different kind of backgrounds, I always feel at home. And for me, this is a big part of what makes the country so fun to visit and why I keep coming back. I'll have more content from my trip over the next few weeks, so make sure you subscribe, and also if you enjoyed this video, you should watch one of the ones that are on screen right now. I think you'll enjoy them, and I'll see you there.